everyone, my name is Abigail Whittingham. Welcome back to another episode of Policy and Me, where we break down policies as simple as 1, 2, 3. Now, today on Policy and Me, we're going to talk about a rising issue in Jamaica, and that's the issue of plastic pollution. Plastic is everywhere. We see it on the roads, it ends up in the gullies, and of course into the seas afterward. But what happens when all that plastic just does not disappear? Today we'll be having a conversation on the plastic ban with Mr. Anthony McKenzie, Director of Environmental Management and Conservation at the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA. But first, we want to hear from you. So how do you feel about plastic pollution in Jamaica?
I feel that plastic pollution is a great detriment to our environment. When it comes on to pollution, plastics is one of the leading cause of pollution, especially water pollution that causes flooding and destroys our marine ecosystems.
Not good.
I don't feel too good about it just because I feel like even though the government stopped like plastic bags being in supermarkets and stuff, it's still a case where people are like polluting. Yes, plastics everywhere, clogging drains, and now there are persons in like the lower class communities are being affected. You get what I mean? Like, because when no floods come, mosquitoes, and then they're affected, stuff like that. So I don't feel good about it.
What actions do you think the government has taken to tackle this issue?
The plastic bans. I know that over the past 3 years, they have been implementing plastic bans, banning single-use plastics, so on and so forth.
Little or anything, come see the same amount of pollution I did see last year, this year, and the other year before too.
I feel like again when they implemented the system where for supermarkets they stopped with the whole plastic bag thing. It was a case where now like they have paper bags. Also with the straws, instead of plastic straws they have paper straws, and even though kinda it's better for the environment, so I think that's.
Have you heard about the plastic ban? If so, what do you know about it?
That they're banning or phasing out different plastic types. I know that if you look under the bottom of some plastics, you'd see the little triangle, the recycling and the numbers. And based on that, over time, they'll be phasing them out and going to, reusable materials for use.
But I heard about it, but they're not to reinforce it or police it.
I only know about like the things Alice said about the straws and then the plastic bag.
Do you think the plastic ban is making a difference? Why or why not?
Yes, the plastic ban is making a difference, and it will continue to make a difference once us as Jamaicans continue to, promote or continue to do what the plastic ban says by phasing out these plastics or reducing our consumption and, proper recycling. We can see a reduction in garbage in our gullies, which cause flooding, and that they're not good for our health overall.
It would make a difference if they do what them say them do.
I think it is, because I feel like even though people are still like littering with the paper straws and stuff, and it's not as bad because it can be broken down, whereas with plastic can be broken down, so it's there forever.
All right, so we've heard from you, and now it's time to hear from the expert. Hi, welcome, Mr. McKenzie.
Hello, Abigail.
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you as well.
So,
Pleasure.
of course, it's customary on Policy and Me that we have our policy jar, and this is from NEPA. So we're excited to get into these questions today. And my first question is, so what exactly is the plastic ban and why was it introduced?
Thank you, Gabriel. So the plastic ban is actually an imposed ban by the government of Jamaica on the use of single-use plastic. So I think I need to make that clear. It's those plastic items that are used once, they're manufactured for use on one occasion and then disposed of. And so the government thought it necessary back in 2018 to develop legislation. So the plastics are banned by virtue and pursuant to 2 pieces of legislation: the NRC Prohibition Order and the Trade Prohibition Order, both of 2018, to make to effect a ban that came into effect in January of 2020. So those single items that are defined in the legislation, we started out first with styrofoam. So back in 2020, the 1st of January, the use of styrofoam packaging, food packaging, that was prohibited, that was banned, so you couldn't import, you couldn't manufacture, and you couldn't use the styrofoam food packaging. The second aspect, or the second phase, if we call it a phase, was in January of 2021, where single-use plastic bags, or what we popularly call the scandal bags, they were banned by virtue of the same pieces of legislation. Plastic bags of a particular size, 24 by 24, 1.2 mils in thickness, and also plastic straws. That was 2021, and then in 2022, the size of the bags that was increased. So over that period, we had 3 phases of the ban on single-use plastics. Now, plastic is where it's ubiquitous, it has value, it's used for purposes, a range of purposes, and it's useful. But the target is really with respect to single-use plastics. The situation with those single-use plastics is that we find that people use them and then they are discarded indiscriminately on the road, in the gullies, ending up on our streams and on our beaches, and it often is a significant mess if it's not properly handled. So the government thought it necessary by way of policy to introduce that ban. We have on the 4th phase, and we could speak about the fourth phase.
Okay, so tell us about the 4th phase.
Right, so the 4th phase now speaks to the plastic food containers. Right? You go to a popular restaurant or a popular cook shop, or even formally with the franchise, these big franchise restaurants, perhaps we won't call the name. But that was a challenge, that was a problem we had, where these plastic containers, again, we found them on the road, we're not properly disposing of them. And so we felt that it was time to also ban those once we were comfortable that we had alternatives, right, on the market that were, of course, reasonable in cost and will not impact the cost. Because the other point is that plastic is cheap, relatively. And so it was important that we have alternatives that would be perfect, so to speak, alternatives. And I think we're at that place. And so the ban was introduced for those packaged items in July of last year, with a 6-month period up until the 9th of January for this year. So the 11th of July last year, 6 months to the 9th of January this year, where the use of these plastic items is prohibited. I should indicate that because there are some companies, well, 3 companies to be exact, they had ordered these plastic items prior to July 11th last year, and so they were allowed, it came in afterwards, and then they were allowed to import and then, of course, distribute in the trade. And so these items are still in the trade, and we expect that in the next couple of weeks, these will be depleted, and then we can actually enforce against people who still use these plastic items. Okay. So you'll still be seeing, in some instances, these plastic items in some restaurants and so on. But I think next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that you'll be seeing significantly less.
Less, right.
What I can say, though, is that the ban has been, I think we feel that it has been very successful. We still have a challenge with respect to the scandal bags, where we still see some in the market district, like in the Coronation Market, right? And we're appealing to our general population, our customers, our clients, wanting to let them know that these items are banned and If you are caught with them in commercial quantities, you can be prosecuted. That's the bottom line. That's the real thing. You know? It can be prosecuted. So you have to take care that you go get an alternate item. We've been promoting multi-use bags, and of course you see people going to the supermarket now, to the shops with their bags and collecting their items, no longer using standard bags. And that can also be done in the market. You have market bags that are manufactured locally, that's what you want.
Right.
And you use those bags and get rid of the scandal.
Okay. All right. So my next question: which agencies or entities are responsible for implementing this policy?
Right. So the major implementer of this policy is the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
That's our minister, by the way. Yeah.
And of course, the NRC, Natural Resources Conservation Authority, stroke NEPA, National Environment and Planning Agency, because the legislation for the ban was created pursuant to, as I said, the NRC Act. So the NEPA is the key primary entity responsible for the implementation.
Okay.
The other key ministry is the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, where the Trade Act falls under. They created the legislation that prohibited the importation. So McJC, MIC are the two key ministries. And then we have the Jamaica Customs Agency. They deal with the matter of the border control, and so they see that it's not imported. Because we don't manufacture these plastic food containers.
We have to import it.
Yeah, we manufacture the plastic, but we used to manage the plastic bags. But the food containers are imported, and so they're critical. And then we have the Bureau of Standards. They do and look at the standards of the packaging, whether it's the bags or the straws or the food containers, and the National Regulatory and Compliance Authority. I mean, they work in tandem with the Bureau of Standards and with the Customs Agency. So I think those are the key entities that are responsible for the implementation. So in terms of educating, in terms of enforcement, in terms of monitoring, yeah.
Wow, I'm loving the conversation that we're having thus far, but hey, you're gonna have to stick a pin in it and join us for part 2 next week.